Two champions, 2 days, and Alex Eala did not need perfect tennis to beat either one. That is the part the WTA should be watching. Because when a young player can survive pressure, reset in the middle of a match, and still find a way through, she is no longer just dangerous. She is becoming dependable. That distinction matters in a sport filled with brief flashes of brilliance. Tennis produces young players who can catch fire for an afternoon, swing without fear, paint the lines, and send a bigger name home before anyone has time to understand what just happened. Those wins are exciting, and sometimes they become the start of something real. Other times, they remain isolated moments. Washington felt different because Eala did not win by playing one flawless match and then repeating it. She beat two accomplished champions in two completely different situations, and both matches forced her to solve a problem after the original plan stopped working. Against Zheng Qinwen, Eala lost the opening set and fell behind by a break in the second. Against Leylah Fernandez, she controlled the early stages, then watched the second set swing violently in the other direction, as Fernandez won 5 straight games and moved ahead 5-1. Those were not the same kind of test. One asked whether Eala could build belief while chasing the match. The other asked whether she could remain composed after losing control of a match she had already been dictating. One demanded that she create momentum, the other demanded that she interrupt it before it became irreversible. She answered both. That is why the real story is not simply that two champions lost in 2 days. The real story is what those victories may reveal about Eala's competitive floor. Her best tennis has been dangerous for a while. She can take the ball early, redirect pace, pressure a second serve, and turn a neutral rally into an attacking position before the opponent realizes the balance has changed. The question has always been what happens when that clean version of her game disappears. Does she speed up? Does she go for too much? Does one loose service game become 3? Does frustration pull her away from the patterns that gave her a chance in the first place? In Washington, the answer was different. Eala arrived as a player ranked inside the world's top 30. That changes the atmosphere around every match. She is no longer walking into these events as an unknown teenager with nothing to lose. Opponents now have film, patterns to study, and a clear reason to take her seriously. The crowd expects more. The media expects more. Every strong week raises the standard for the next one. The players who stay near the top do not avoid poor stretches. They manage them. They know how to lose a few points without losing the shape of the match. They protect the scoreboard while searching for a solution. They understand that control in tennis is rarely permanent, so the goal is not to hold it forever. The goal is to recover it faster than the person across the net. That is what Eala showed. Jung still brought real pressure with her serve. Fernandez still found a way to change the rhythm and put Eala under stress. Neither match was handed over from the first ball. Both opponents created moments when the result could have tilted away from her, but the match never fully escaped. Eala stayed close enough for the next adjustment to matter. She did not need every forehand to end the point. She did not need the scoreboard to remain comfortable. She needed enough discipline to recognize what was changing, enough patience to stop making the problem worse, and enough conviction to attack when the opening returned. Young players often react to pressure by trying to force the match back under control in 1 or 2 swings. They hit harder, aim closer to the lines, and abandon margin. Sometimes the gamble works. More often, it accelerates the collapse. Eala's response was more mature. She did not try to rescue the entire match with one shot. She kept herself alive long enough to solve it. And the clearest example came against Jung. Eala was down a set when she was broken at love for 4-3 in the second. At that point, the match was close to becoming straightforward for Jung. Hold twice, and the Olympic champion moves on. Eala had every reason to feel the pressure, especially against a player who struck 14 aces and could make a returner feel as if chances might never come. Then Eala broke back at love. The importance of that game was not only the scoreboard, it was the speed of the response. She did not spend several games recovering emotionally. She did not wait for a changeover to rebuild her confidence. The correction happened immediately, and from there she won 7 straight games, closed the second set, and moved ahead 4. Love in the third. Momentum can feel mysterious, but this swing had a tactical shape. Across the match, Eala won nearly 65% of the points played behind Jung's second serve and converted 6 of 8 break chances. In the deciding set, Jung won only 1 of 9 second serve points. Eala took 28 of 44 total points and converted every break opportunity she created in that set. Those numbers suggest Eala was not simply waiting for Jung to miss. She was changing the meaning of the second serve. The moment the first serve failed, Eala treated the next ball as permission to move forward mentally. She was not just putting the return in play. She was looking to take time away, start the rally on her terms, and make Jung defend before she could establish her power. Once the rally developed, Eala appeared more willing to let the point breathe. She gave herself margin, kept the ball deep, and asked Jung to produce quality repeatedly rather than once. Against a heavy hitter, that is not passive tennis. It is a way of making power prove itself under pressure. Every extra ball became another decision for Zheng, and another reminder that the lead had not ended the resistance. Then came Fernandez, and the challenge was almost the opposite. Eala had already established control. She took the opening set 6-2, while Fernandez struggled with consistency and made 14 unforced errors in only 8 games. Eala did not need to produce a highlight reel. She needed to stay organized while the defending champion searched for a foothold. Fernandez found one. Her rally tolerance improved, her court position became more aggressive, and the balance of the match shifted. 5 straight games turned an Eala lead into a 5-1 deficit. Losing control after you have already owned the match can be more dangerous than starting behind. When you begin slowly, the mission is obvious. You build, you adjust, you fight your way into the contest. But when a comfortable match suddenly turns, the mind wants to chase the version of the game that existed 20 minutes earlier. You try to recreate the same winners, the same timing, and the same easy scoreboard. That is where panic enters. Eala did not need to recreate the first set. She needed to understand the second. Fernandez led 5-1 and had Eala at 15-30, but she never reached set point. That detail says more than the score alone. Eala kept the deficit from becoming a conclusion. She held serve, forced Fernandez to keep carrying the burden of closing the set, and made every remaining point feel less comfortable than it should have. Fernandez finished the match with 42 unforced errors, and several came at moments when she could have forced a deciding set. That cannot be ignored. But calling it a collapse does not explain everything. A collapse still requires someone on the other side to remain stable, enough to collect the opportunity. Eala did more than collect it. She won almost 2/3 of the return points behind Fernandez's second serve, converted 4 of 9 break points, and finished with 79 of the match's 140 points. At 5-5, she survived one of the most demanding exchanges of the match, turned defense into attack, and finished with a forehand winner after Fernandez hesitated at the net. By the time the tiebreak arrived, the emotional balance had changed again. Eala was no longer the player escaping. Fernandez was the player trying to understand how a set that had looked finished had become dangerous. Eala won the tiebreak 7-1 and closed the final 2 points with consecutive forehand winners. That ending mattered because it completed the full pattern. Patience kept her alive, but patience was never the final objective. It created the right moment to attack. That is the balance in Eala's game right now. Control does not always come from hitting the biggest ball. Sometimes it means refusing to give the opponent an easy finish, absorbing pace, and waiting until the court opens. Then the attack has to be decisive. After the match, Eala described the comeback in practical terms. She recognized that Fernandez had raised her level while her own had dropped, and she kept searching for solutions. That is revealing because she did not treat the turnaround like a burst of inspiration. She treated it like a problem that could be worked through. Problem-solving travels. A hot forehand can disappear on a different court. A great serving day may not return in the next round. Crowd energy changes, conditions change, opponents take away favorite patterns. But the ability to recognize what is failing, slow the match down mentally, and build a new route is far more repeatable. That does not mean these 2 wins prove Eala is suddenly ready to dominate every event. Jung was not at her most consistent. Fernandez contributed heavily to her own defeat. 2 results do not erase the technical areas that stronger opponents will continue to test. But those limitations do not weaken the central point. They make it more precise. The warning is not that Eala has become unbeatable. The warning is that beating her may now require more than winning the first tactical battle. Jung found a way to lead by a set and a break. It was not enough. Fernandez found a way to win 5 consecutive games and move within 1 game of a deciding set. It was not enough. Earlier in the season, Fernandez beat Eala 6-1, 6-4 on clay in Stuttgart. The surface difference matters. Hard courts give Eala a better platform to take the ball early, redirect pace, and attack the second serve. But the more meaningful change may be how she responded once Fernandez raised her level. In Stuttgart, Eala never found a route back into the match. In Washington, she adjusted while the match was still moving. That is the shift opponents now have to prepare for. They cannot assume an early lead will break her structure. They cannot assume a run of games will make her speed up. They may have to beat the first version of Eala, then beat the adjusted version that appears once she understands the problem. And that is when a promising player becomes difficult to game plan against. The next stage of Eala's development is not about producing more dramatic comebacks. It is about needing fewer of them. The best players still get pushed. They still lose momentum. They still have days when timing disappears and the first serve refuses to cooperate. What separates them is how early they recognize the danger. One loose game stays one loose game. One poor decision does not turn into an entire set. They protect the scoreboard while rebuilding the tennis. Eala showed that ability in Washington, but she also showed why there is still room to grow. Against Fernandez, a strong position became a 5-1 deficit. Against Jung, she needed to recover from a set and a breakdown. Those escapes were impressive, but better opponents may not reopen the door. A year ago, a competitive loss to an established champion could still be framed as valuable experience. Now Eala is ranked inside the top 30, has beaten major champions on important stages, and is attracting crowds that expect her to win. The standard has changed because she changed it. The conversation is no longer about whether she belongs in these matches. It is moving toward whether she can control them. The attention around her is real. Philippine flags have followed her into the stands, and tournament officials have described extraordinary demand from fans asking when she would play. That support gives her matches an atmosphere that feels bigger than an early round at a regular tour event. But attention can be a gift and a burden at the same time. The challenge is to use that energy without allowing it to speed up the process. Eala does not need to prove everything in one tournament. She does not need every week to become a breakthrough. What she needs is to show that the habits beneath the headlines survive different opponents, different surfaces, and different expectations. That is why high alert should not be treated as empty hype. It does not mean the entire tour is afraid of her. It does not mean she is suddenly favored against every top player. It means the preparation now has to go deeper. Opponents must prepare for her left-handed patterns, her early contact, and her willingness to attack a second serve. They also have to prepare for the possibility that winning the first battle will not be enough. If they take away one option, she may find another. If they build a lead, she may not panic. If her level drops, she has shown she can rebuild it before the match is gone. 2 champions going down in 2 days created the headline. The more important development is what connected the victories. Eala did not rely on the same scoreline, the same rhythm, or the same type of opponent. She relied on the same competitive habit: stay close, understand the problem, and attack once control returns. That is the lens to use when evaluating any young player making noise on tour. Do not look only at how brilliant she appears when everything is working. Watch what happens when momentum turns, the easy patterns disappear, and the opponent forces her to think. That is where potential either breaks down or becomes dependable. In Washington, Alex Eala showed that her best tennis can beat champions. More importantly, she showed that her imperfect tennis can survive them. And that is when a rising player stops feeling like a surprise and starts becoming a problem for everyone else.